Hello, welcome to Confronting the Darkness. I'm Rob Jacobs.
And I'm Fr.Bob Bailey.
We're going to take a little break tonight from the norm of discussing the demonic and do a fun show in honor of Halloween and talk a little bit about our favorite and least favorite movies that deal with things of a demonic nature. First, I wanted to comment, you're wearing something a little different this evening.
Yes, I am. Well, actually, because this is the day, I actually work part-time now in our local hospital, and I just literally got off my shift and came here to do the show. So this is what people see me as in the hospital. So again, this is why my ministry is not only in the parish, but also in the hospital now. So my time is pretty much, my plate is pretty much full. Right. But I'm happy to have been able to come for this show today, this evening, this afternoon, whatever. Whenever you guys are seeing it, it will be.
Right. At least it'll be enjoyable. It'll be fun, something a little different, not so serious.
Yeah.
But actually, on a serious point, we do have emails that came in, and we've been asking people to send us some emails with questions that we can bring up and discuss on the show. So we'll get right to that. The first email we have is from John from Colorado. His question: do you work with psychics or mediums? And isn't the church opposed to a priest working with these types of people, I guess? He just kind of left it with these types.
Yeah. We got a couple of those. I got one on my Facebook page, and I just answered that one, so this is a good one to bring up. Our ministry is from a Catholic Christian tradition. You know, we are not a paranormal group, we are a warrior group, but because I'm a Catholic priest, it comes from the Catholic Christian tradition. Everything that we do comes from that. So we do not work in our ministry of deliverance and healing with psychics or the like. I respect all people's beliefs, and I have friends who are, but in our ministry, we do that obviously because you and I are Catholic Christians. Right. Just like it would make no sense for a Buddhist to do Roman Catholic rituals because the Buddhists would have no faith in what the Roman Catholic rituals have because it's not their tradition. Same thing with us. We come from a Catholic Christian tradition. I am a priest. And we go in there and we do the prayers and invoke Jesus and Mary and the saints from our Catholic Christian tradition. So we don't work directly, and I don't see anywhere where the church would forbid us, at least from working together of mutual respect. Right. You know, we respect all people's religions, no matter what, and you know, we get along very well with people in other faith traditions that are not Christian. Absolutely.
Okay, the second email that we received was from Jean, and she was actually from Rhode Island. Her question: can having a paranormal group come into my home make things worse? Will having them come in make whatever is there become angry or possibly hurt someone in the family?
That's a very good question.
It is a very good question.
And on so many different levels.
I know, that's one that will take a while to answer just because there's so many variables.
Yeah. I think that, first of all, if you're dealing in a demonic nature, if it's assumed or presumed, rather, that there is a demonic haunting, then the group should immediately stop
Right.
especially if they're not versed to doing warfare. So if you're starting to get negative responses, if you go in and you really feel that there's something malevolent in there, then you really cannot treat it like a paranormal ghost hunt, ghost investigation, because it can. And again, we see these things, and again, I'm not hopping on it, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on this at all, but you see things on TV where they call on them, and it's the worst thing to do because, you go and do that, you set up this investigation, you taunt them, and then you go home at the end of the night.
That's right.
Or in the morning, and these people have to deal with it. So it would be wise to kind of check out the group that you're asking in,
Right.
and be sure that they have some kind of background. You can check with us, if you'd like to, on different groups that are trained enough to be able to say, well, okay, this is negative, and we have to treat this differently.
Right. And there are some very good groups out there that do have some training and would have a good idea how to proceed.
But it's a good question. It can happen.
Yeah.
It can happen if you start, angering. Again, if you believe it's a ghost, don't get cocky and insulting and all that. You're going to get angry. If somebody insulted you or I, we would get angry.
Oh, right.
So, you got to be professional. They got to be professional.
Right. All right. We have a third email, and this is from Jim, and unfortunately I don't have the area he's from, but his question: how do I find credible clergy in my area? I have found that there are many that call themselves either reverend or minister or even demonologist, and they are not ordained through a real church or have credible knowledge. That's a good question.
Well, yeah, again, how do you know if they have credible knowledge? I'm
Yeah,
not sure
well,
what that,
I guess
I'm not
that's
sure what
his
that
opinion
means. Yeah.
on that. But
But it's important to know when you're bringing clergy in, know who the clergy is. I would ask, okay, what denomination? Oh, well, I'm kind of freelancing. Red flag.
yeah.
Where did you attend the seminary? Oh, I had this thing online, and there are correspondence courses, and I have to be clear on that. Some denominations will have seminary courses, but you have to be very careful. And I guess the only thing to do is check them out. If they are doing ministry connected to a Christian tradition, if they're Baptist or Lutheran or from a Catholic tradition, you've got to check that out. Because what happens is, because you say you know the Bible inside and out, anybody knows that.
Yeah.
You have to be formally trained in the areas of theology. You have to be. And these people that just say, oh, I know the Lord, this is a calling and all that. Yes, would you enlist the help of a doctor that says, oh, I read the medical books inside out. Oh, I know how God wants me to do operations.
I'll take your heart out for you.
Yeah, don't worry. I know what I'm doing. God ordained me to do this. I didn't have to take classes. Same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, that's going to do it for the emails. So please, if you're watching, if you have any questions and you'd like to have them answered on the show, you can email us at pwsm4@yahoo.com, and we'd be happy to bring them up on the show and try to answer them the best we can. Now to the fun part. We'll get to some of our favorite movies. So I know you've got some good ones, so we'll see what you have to talk about.
And what I thought about this when I was talking over with Rob is that, we should do a fun thing around different holidays. And I thought this would be kind of a cool thing. We all like to watch horror movies during this time of year. I've been watching different ones every night. And a few of them that I've never seen before, like The Mist, the Mothman. I never saw those before, so it was interesting. But one of my favorites, and it's been a favorite ever since the movie came out, and sad to say, I remember when it came out, it shows my age, is The Omen. And The Omen and The Omen 3. The whole trilogy is fine, but you can actually watch number 1 and go right to 3 without knowing number 2. But
that's nice.
The original thing about The Omen was that struck me. It was because of its good versus evil, and talking about the Antichrist. Now, There are different traditions about the Antichrist, and there have been many Antichrists in our history. Nero, we would say the Emperor Nero, we could say Hitler. But from the book of Revelations, there are different traditions. And there is a tradition that the Antichrist will be a physical person.
Right.
And according to mystical and prophetic, Christian prophetic, he is here. He was born, he is here. Now, the movie takes a lot of license, but it fascinated me because as I watched that, I actually was able to see part of myself in that, even as a teenager. The first thing is when they went to the monastery where that priest was, where there was the fire at the hospital in Rome, he went to this monastery to do penance for the rest of his life for cooperating in the birth of this Antichrist. And it was in Frosinone, which is a province in Italy where my grandparents came from. So that was the first thing that interested me, got my attention. The second is where the mother, the jackal, was buried. It was an ancient Etruscan cemetery. Now, my ancestors, my Italian ancestors, were not Roman. They were actually Etruscan. They actually fought against the Romans. So where my grandparents lived were all Etruscans. So that again got my interest up. And as I saw that, it was interesting because I remember at the end of the movie, I was sitting with my friends. I believe it was in junior high school. And I said, someday, I just felt that someday I will be part of the confrontation of good versus evil, even with the Antichrist. And,
you are today.
The interesting, and also I love the final conflict because although it is far-fetched, I mean, Jesus didn't have to be born again. He won't be born again. But they had to make it, interesting. But the
Right.
final thing when the Antichrist gets defeated and Christ is there in glory, it was magnificent, the triumph of good over evil. But what they will tell you is the interesting thing is in that movie was that a lot of mishaps happened during that time. There were planes that were hit suddenly by lightning several times.
That's right.
Several times. And all different little mishaps where they were afraid that they felt they had something very special that the enemy did not want out. The evil did not want out. Maybe because it for the first time addressed the Antichrist, the notion of the Antichrist. And they had a theological advisor on set. And although he was a Christian, I believe a born-again Christian, he really didn't believe in personified evil. He believed in evil, but not a person, personified evil like
Right.
the devil. And by the end of making that film, he was convinced that there was. It changed his whole outlook. So
Wow.
it was amazing on The Omen and the final conflict. The other one that I really liked was obviously The Exorcist because it was a watershed. It was a watershed movie that opened up a topic that was never talked about. It was hush hush.
It was so controversial at the time.
Controversial and also just shocking. I can remember.
Yeah.
I was young, and my sister had the book in her room, and I said, "Oh, what's this? The Exorcist. Oh, I want to read it." She said, "No, you don't read that for. You don't even know what it is." I said, "Yes, I do. What is it?" "Well, I don't know. I don't know what it is. What is it?" She said, "It means getting the devil out of someone." Oh. So as the movie came out, my mother's cousin was a priest, and they all were going, and my cousin said, "No, Bob should not go because he's too young to get exposed to all that." So I wasn't allowed to go. I was young.
Right.
But, as a young teenager, very young teenager, that's the wrong thing to say. I went to the library. I went everywhere I could and got everything I could on exorcism. There were a lot of tabloids out there at the time around that because it was such a big topic. I remember even going to the library, and the librarian says, "You're getting these books on exorcism? Don't you know it's against your religion to read this?" I go, "Whatever, it's like, just give me my books,
Yeah.
By the time the movie actually came out, it didn't scare me at all because I had read true life accounts at a young
Right.
age. But like The Omen, so many weird things happened there too. Deaths, accidents. At one time they had to have a priest there, and he actually had to do a blessing, and even of the sets because there was so much what they believe was supernatural interference there. So obviously that was another topic that was out there on a subject that I'm sure the devil didn't want people to know
Right,
about.
right.
But it really was an incredible, incredible opening of that subject.
I remember when it came out, and you've got a couple years on me.
One or
So
two.
I was a little younger, and I remember just previews of that, how badly it kind of scared me. And then it went as far as hearing about things that happened in the movie with the bed shaking. And there was actually, we lived on the second floor of a house, and when my mother would run the dryer, the bed would shake, and it terrified me. It was, even when as far as, remember the TV guides, they would have captions and pictures, and just to see it on there, and they, of course they'd put like, you know, the eeriest picture they could. But yeah, I think that was probably like the grandfather of all these demonic films would be The Exorcist, that, you know, kind of ignited it.
And you know, and William Peter Blatty, I've seen interviews with him on it, and it's amazing. You know, I have the anniversary director's cut, and if you do have it, it's worth watching about their whole view behind it. You know, and he was very interested. You know, he became interested in the whole thing of good versus evil.
Right.
And you know, there were Hollywood parts of it, but by and large, for that day and age, it was pretty accurate.
Yeah.
You know, about the basic things of exorcism,
The progression
and demonic, and yes, exactly. You know, the pea soup, everyone laughs and all that, but you know, those were for Hollywood. But everything else, you know, most everything else, I would say, was pretty spot on.
Yeah. I think there was a lot of shock factor in that
Oh,
one
yeah.
too. I mean, we know that the head spinning would be impossible no matter what. But I mean, the scenes with the crucifix were very intense.
Yeah.
I mean, it was tough to watch.
And they, you know, and my brother-in-law, who's got a few years over me, you know, he's got 7 years over me. Back then, when he and his friends were so scared, like, they said a lot of young people were going to the priests thinking they were possessed. You know, when little things happened, and they used to do pranks to people, you know, to scare them. You know, it was amazing. But
yeah, it was a great movie. Today, I still have trouble watching it. I don't know why. Maybe it's because how it affected me when I was younger. But
yeah,
one of those things. One of my favorites, and it's a newer one. You know, probably one of the newest ones that came out would be The Rite. That was done by Matt Baglio. I have the book, which was more of a. I think the book was not necessarily made to become a movie. It was more of a how-to guide almost, explaining how possession and exorcism work and how it was done. But the movie itself, I thought had a lot of great parts in it, showing, I think O'Donoghue was his last name that played, it would have been Father Gary Thomas's part, I guess, where he had a question of faith. And come to find out, that isn't necessarily true. I guess they added that for the storyline. Father Thomas never had a question of faith. He knew where he was going. But the fact that they took it and sent him to Rome for the classes, which is true, they really do have some sort of training like that. And then the Anthony Hopkins character was based on another priest. And I thought it would have been Father Gabriel Amorth, but it wasn't. It was another priest that was very well versed with the exorcisms. But the accounts that they had, the coughing of nails, that was something that was actually documented to be true. That was something that happened. Of course, the aversion to the religious objects. I think everything that kind of went in that was very true to life. There wasn't a lot of the Hollywood baloney thrown in for effect or shock.
And I think that's the thing. Exorcism, which again, let me underline here, full possession exorcism is extremely rare. You know, people who say, you know, this one's possessed or partially possessed or momentarily possessed, I'm sorry, but no, I don't buy that because that is not the classic education. You can be oppressed, you can be attacked, yes.
Right.
But when people call me and say, oh, I think I'm possessed, I need an exorcism, I said, you're not possessed, because if you were, you would not be calling me.
Yeah,
If you're in
right.
true possession, you don't have your will. And the last thing that the devil would do would want to come to do that. Unless he had a vendetta against the priest and wanted to do battle. That might be a rare occurrence. But yeah, the spinning of the nails, they say, well, that's Hollywood. But no, it's not. Those kind of weird things do happen.
Right.
And did happen in exorcisms.
Yeah.
Just like levitation has happened there. And the way that the body contorts and all that, that does happen in true exorcism cases. It's not Hollywood.
Right. Speaking about the right, there was also another movie that came out. I'm not sure. I think it was just after the Devil Inside. That one I really didn't care for too much. A lot of what they showed, I think, one with the whole scenario with the girl wanting to know what happened with her mother was very interesting, and I guess the manner in which she was possessed kind of took a different course as opposed to your normal, from oppression to possession. But what I really didn't like about it was how they made it where this demon was able to hop, like you said, from person to person like this. I just, we've never heard of anything or seen anything like that. And they did it in the manner that, first person, I guess, or documentary style, to try and, I guess, make it more believable.
Yeah.
But
I mean, spirits can go from one person to another, but not in the way that it was in the movie.
Right.
Not that quickly and that just arbitrarily.
Right. I was reading on the right, and I couldn't find anything tied to it, like, with The Exorcist or The Omen, where there was, what they call it, the film curse. Nothing tied to that, which surprised me, because with what they had going on there, you would have thought the devil would have taken advantage. I mean, and caused some problems.
Maybe not.
Yeah. Also, another movie that I thought was done well was The Shining. Now, that's been perceived in a few different manners by people. One would be mental illness, but there's also the possession of Jack Nicholson's character. And it was interesting how they did it, because there was definitely progression done in that film. And the way they did that film was really interesting, because they didn't throw in all these, you have the background noise or the wind blowing or the creaky doors. You won't find that anywhere in that film. It was all shot, they didn't put any of the extras in for shock factor. But it was so eerie with, the blood pouring out of the elevators, or the two little girls, and then the room 237. And then come to find out, reading up on it, there's a lot of conspiracy theories that are tied to that movie. One would be that Stanley Kubrick, who produced The Shining, not the book, the movie, because Stephen King wrote the book, and I guess he was very upset with the production of it, that Stanley Kubrick had actually helped NASA fake the Apollo 11 moon landing. And in the film, there are different things that they show, like Danny Torrance wearing a sweater that has the Apollo 11 on it, was supposed to be in reference to that. Then there's also questions of the numbers. Room 237, if you add it up, 2 times 3 times 7 is 42. There was a show that they caught on television during the movie, so the summer of 42, that was all supposed to be in reference to the genocide of the Jews in 1942. So there's some weird things.
What was their thing about the genocide, that he didn't believe it happened?
No, I don't know.
The conspiracy?
It was almost like a political statement, I guess. He was trying to. There's so much to it that you really have to read and read and read. I was just able to pick out that there were so many, like the number 21, the number 42, the number 11, all had significant factors, but the theories on them varied. But they kept going back to the genocide with the number 42 for some reason. And then something about I think it was a bear wearing a tuxedo or something. There was a special reference for that too, that people believed it meant something. But there was nothing like the film Curse, where anything happened to any of the characters. But
it's interesting.
It was definitely a very eerie film to watch, despite how the book went. So, I mean, I kind of that was one of the movies that I liked.
What's interesting is I had an opportunity to go to the Stanley Hotel for a conference with PRS to give a talk there on the work of demonology and a workshop. And I actually got to take a picture of the door that they used when, Hello, Johnny.
Oh, yeah.
when he came
Yeah.
out, so you can actually put your face through that. And we went to the room. We actually were in that room for a while, 237, and the last day there was this big rumor that Jack Nicholson was coming in, and he did. And we were like, oh my God, oh my God. And I got a picture taken, and I said, oh, this is such an honor. Turned out it was an impersonator.
Oh.
And then afterwards, we kicked our head. It's like, he doesn't still look like that young.
Oh.
You know? But it was a neat thing. It was a neat experience being there. Of course, they never used the actual Stanley Hotel outside because they didn't believe that people would think there was something that luxurious hidden up in the mountains. So they used another hotel for the facade of it.
Oh, wow. There was something stated about, I guess there was a design in the main lobby that was supposed to make a reference to the Apollos, where it took off, the landing site or something. And something about the carpets and the pictures. I guess almost anything that was shown in there was
in the movie itself.
Yeah, in the movie itself,
okay,
yeah.
You know, I think we should get also in the meantime, before it gets to what the one movie that we would say was the worst, that we think is the worst horror movie. For me, my pet peeve, I mean, I'm not considering low budget ones. I'm not talking about low budget movies that weren't produced well. I'm talking about the content matter. The worst one that I thought was Stigmata.
Oh.
Because of the fact they totally perverted what the Stigmata was, and they made it into something evil, like a curse, and it was horrible. I had my youth group, and they wanted to go see it, so we all went, and we're sitting in the back, and I'm sitting there going, that's not true. Oh no, that's not right. No. And I thought that other people were going to kill me, but I was so angry that they took this blessed gift, and they say if you get all 4 of the Stigmatas, then you die. Padre Pio only had 3. No, Padre Pio had all. He had the hands, the feet, and the side. Right. You know, so it was full of, of not truths. Right. And they made it out into, like when she got the Stigmata, she like was thrown back and out and over the tables and all that. Right. It doesn't work like that. You are exclusionary pain. St. Francis had it. Padre Pio had it. There are other holy people in history who've had it, Teresa Newman and others like that. But it just, for me, that goes down as being one of the worst ones because of the content.
One of the worst ones for me, probably, it was a more recent one, and we're up against the clock here. We've got 2 minutes, so I'm going to make it brief, was The Last Exorcism. I really liked how it started off, because it was very similar to what we do, where just the mail coming in, urgent, open immediately. Oh, yeah. It all tied in. But come the end, they turned it into a satanic ritual, and you had a preacher who had no faith, who was trying to make a documentary about how the frauds are out there. And in turn, he still went and took hundreds of dollars from the family. And I think it made any legitimate ones, if people believe it because it was done as a documentary type, it made it look bad. So unfortunately, since we're lack of time here, I can't get more into it. But that, I think, was probably one of the worst ones I've seen. Mm-hmm. So with that, we're up against the clock. I want to thank you for joining. Hope you enjoyed the little commentary we had about the Halloween or horror flicks. And we hope you tune in next time. We'll get back to the serious stuff.
We wish you all a very happy Halloween and
a safe Halloween.
A safe Halloween.
Until next time, don't forget. I'm forgetting. I have it written down too. You started.
When confronting the darkness.
Don't forget to put on the whole armor of God.
With the sword of St. Michael. And happy All Saints' Day.
God bless.